Ah.
What would you do if the very person who was supposed to protect your neighborhood turned out to be the thief stealing from it? That was Preston Mallory's nightmare. When packages kept vanishing from his porch, he decided to set a trap no one in the neighborhood would ever forget. And what happened next exposed the truth in the most unforgettable way. Before we dive into today's unbelievable story, make sure you subscribe to Blackish Focus. By joining us, you'll never miss another powerful, emotional, and eye-opening story that inspires, entertains, and makes you think. Preston Mallory had just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood in Plano, Texas. After years of cramped apartments and long hours in Dallas, he finally bought a townhouse in what seemed like the perfect place: gated access, neat lawns, and friendly neighbors. At first, everything seemed right. Neighbors waved, children played in the cul-de-sac, and Preston finally felt like he belonged. But within 3 weeks, 3 of his packages had mysteriously vanished. The tracking numbers always confirmed delivery, even showing photos of boxes neatly left by his front door. Yet hours later, they were gone. At first, he thought it was porch pirates, but something didn't add up. The community was gated, monitored, and filled with retirees who noticed everything. How could someone steal so openly so often? One evening, Preston asked his neighbor Owen if he'd seen anything strange. Owen hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Word is, Geraldine's been seen walking off with boxes." Geraldine Caffrey, the HOA president. She was known for her perfectly trimmed roses, her clipboard full of citations, and her iron grip over the neighborhood. She fined people for trash bins left out too long, dictated curtain colors, and wrote violation notices for grass an inch too high. Could the same woman enforcing the rules also be bold enough to steal? Preston laughed it off at first, but he couldn't shake the thought. Especially after remembering how she once stood in his yard, critiquing the color of his shutters as if she owned his home. As days passed, Preston noticed Geraldine's habits. She seemed to know exactly when delivery trucks came. Sometimes she parked her SUV down the street, as if hiding in plain sight. Neighbors whispered similar suspicions. Irene Callahan admitted she once saw Geraldine carrying a box into her garage that didn't belong to her, and she never got hers back. Victor, another neighbor, said his golf clubs vanished, only for Geraldine's grandson to be seen swinging them weeks later. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. Geraldine wasn't just a strict HOA president. She was using her power to cover up thefts. Preston wasn't reckless. He filed an official complaint with the HOA, detailing his missing packages. But Geraldine herself replied, dismissing his concerns. The HOA is not responsible for package theft. Install cameras. Be present for deliveries. When Preston pushed further, Geraldine warned him, false accusations against neighbors can be violations. She had no intention of stopping because she was the thief, and the system was built to protect her. Preston turned to the police. An officer sympathized but explained they needed hard evidence. Set up a decoy package. Catch them in the act. That advice lit a spark. Preston had read about glitter bombs used against porch pirates, but glitter felt too harmless. Geraldine had humiliated neighbors for years with petty fines. If he wanted to expose her, he needed something unforgettable. That's when he remembered the skunk. A few weeks earlier, one had sprayed near his garage, leaving a stench that lingered for days. The idea formed quickly, a decoy box with a skunk inside. If Geraldine was guilty, she'd expose herself. Preston bought a live trap, baited it with food, and by morning, a skunk was inside. He secured the animal in a cage, placed it inside a cardboard box, cut air holes, and taped it shut. On the outside, he added a bright label, "Fragile, handle with care." That afternoon, he set the box on his porch and angled his camera perfectly. Then he waited. At 3 p.m., Geraldine emerged, clipboard under her arm. She slowed as she passed, eyeing the box. After glancing around, she casually picked it up and carried it into her garage. Preston's camera caught everything. Moments later, The neighborhood erupted with screams, shrieks, and then the unmistakable stench of skunk. Geraldine burst from her garage, gagging, clothes stained, clipboard forgotten on the driveway. Neighbors stepped outside, fanning the air, watching the HOA queen humiliated in front of everyone. Preston didn't gloat. He simply stepped onto his porch and asked calmly, "Everything okay over there, Miss Caffrey?" Neighbors whispered, laughed quietly, even clapped. For the first time, Geraldine looked powerless. Preston's footage showed her taking the box. The smell made her guilt undeniable. At the next HOA meeting, Geraldine tried to claim she was safeguarding packages. But neighbors had had enough. One by one, they spoke up. Irene about her missing deliveries, Victor about his golf clubs, Carmen about her absurd curtain fine. The tide turned. A petition circulated. When the vote came, Geraldine was removed as HOA president. With Geraldine gone, the community transformed. Fear was replaced with connection. Neighbors who barely spoke before now shared stories, held cookouts, and laughed about the legend of the skunk in the box. Preston never wanted to be a leader, but his stand against Geraldine gave others courage. The smallest act of defiance had broken years of control. In time, the HOA elected a new president, Carmen Alvarez, who promised fairness and transparency. Meetings became conversations instead of lectures. The neighborhood finally felt like home. Preston didn't think of himself as a hero. He just wanted his packages. But by standing up, he helped his community rediscover its voice. The moral is clear. There will always be people who abuse power. But silence gives them strength. One act of courage, one trap, one stand, one voice can change everything. If this story inspired you, remember, never let fear silence you. Stand up, even if your voice shakes. Subscribe to Blackish Focus for more real-life stories that will make you think, laugh, and believe again in the power of truth and community.